What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Fanatics View Hockey Show. I am James Lynch. Happy to bring back on the show. It's been a bit. I was just talking to him off air. I haven't had him on in a while, and I really should, because the Dallas Stars have been one of the most consistent teams in the league this season. We kind of figured they would, but with all the parity going on in the NHL right now, it's kind of interesting to see that Dallas is still currently, at the time I'm looking at the standings right now, second in the Western Conference. Travis Tyler back here on the program. Travis, how are you?
I'm great, James. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, how's it been this year covering a team that has had a lot of success, and especially like I mentioned there, there's a lot of teams that have been sort of disappointing. Let's put it that way. Just how is that? How's it compared to maybe other seasons?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a little more fun than other seasons, I guess. Like I was saying, like I've said all off season, it felt like there was a better vibe with the way the team is right now, and or at least going into the season and everything. Obviously, they've hit a little slump so far over these last couple games, but it's been definitely a change of pace from what was going on before, and it's just been it's a good place to be around. So it's fun to watch.
Yeah, it's fun to watch.
When it's going,
I was going to say it's fun watching winning hockey. I can't say the same thing here in Vancouver, but let's talk quickly about the game last night against Carolina. 6-3, the Hurricanes get it done. Speaking of teams that have had a lot of success this season, Carolina has been sort of a staple at the top of the Eastern Conference for most of the season. But here, Jason Robertson gets a bit of a snub here on the Olympics, and look at him, 2 assists and a goal. Again, they don't get the win, but I thought, overall, if you look at the shots and everything, a pretty good effort against another good sort of heavyweight there, Casey DeSmith. You can see, splitting duties there with Ottinger. Just give us kind of your take on the game last night, and they're sort of how they stack up against a team like Carolina.
Yeah, it was it was a very difficult start, I'd say. I think Carolina had 5 goals in their first 15 shots or something like that. So it was the puck was going in the net at a pretty high rate, and once you get behind Carolina, it's kind of difficult to make a comeback because of the way they control the puck and their possession and their defense. So I mean, it didn't start off very well, and then on the back end they started scoring some goals, but then like Glenn Gulletson said after the game, you can't outscore every opponent. You got to defend, and that's what they're kind of focused on fixing on, and that was kind of the big issue last night and throughout this losing streak has been the defense and the penalties. I think they've committed 5 more penalties than their opponents over the last 6 games or so, and they're killing them off pretty well, but you can't be shorthanded that much in that kind of ramp up your playing style, especially the way the Stars want to play on the offensive end with their aggressiveness and the skill that they have.
Yeah, and a team like Carolina, and you see the goals there, obviously 3-1 in the first period. It was 5-1 come the third period. That's a tough hole. And one of the things with Carolina, and I've seen this firsthand when the Canucks have played them, is that you're a team you can't really make mistakes against. They're so fast and they're so skilled that this is one of those teams that can really pile it on. And there's only a few teams that can really do that can really sort of take advantage early on and really put a lead ahead of them there. So Carolina, not a team you want to be making mistakes against. Again, though, you look at the record overall, Dallas doing quite well. And by the way, if you guys have any questions, post them in the chat. I see we got a few people in here. I'll get to those questions here in a second. But again, I mentioned it there, Jason Robertson. Was it as big of a deal? Because like we sort of saw, obviously here in Canada, everyone's concerned about the Canadian roster, but there were a lot of notes on the Team USA roster for the Olympics. Jason Robertson getting snubbed. How surprised were you by that?
I wouldn't say surprised, because that had kind of been like the rumor that was going around, was that he wasn't going to make it. But I don't agree with the decision, especially with the scoring tear that he's been on. I mean, I think he had 3 goals in like the first couple months, and then he had like 18 over a month span or something like that. It was something crazy. I feel like he would have added a little bit of a scoring punch to that roster. And what they were saying was, or at least what I've heard, is that they were a little worried about the physicality or whatever. They wanted to be a little more physical. And a lot of Dallas fans are making a big deal out of that, and Bill Guerin is not a very well liked man around here these days.
Right. No, I'd imagine. Yeah. No. And I understand it. And I also understand that element of going maybe more on the physical side too, because a lot of people, well, here in Vancouver, by the way, a lot of people weren't sure if JT Miller was going to make this team because obviously he hasn't had a very good season with New York, but I think that's part of it. You know, he's a guy that will drop the gloves. He'll get a little bit physical. It's the same reason why Tom Wilson is still on Team Canada. So I think that these are things to sort of look at when they're selecting the roster. But yeah, I was just curious from your perspective, because I remember seeing that and going, they probably should have made the team, but yeah, I always want to get sort of your pulse on that. Let's get to a couple questions here, and we'll keep talking about the Stars. Nil has to make a move soon. Yeah, I mean, the great thing about being in Dallas right now is you guys are going to be buyers. We're starting to get to that point, and I thought it would be even sooner than this with some of the parity going on in the standings, but there's definitely some teams open for business here in Vancouver. Obviously, I mean, everyone here wants, pretty much anyone over the age of 25, Canucks fans want to trade, so I know Kiefer Sherwood could be an interesting addition for a lot of teams. What are some needs though for Dallas? We're hearing, from Natalie here saying they need to make a move. Would it be on the back end? What would you sort of do if you're in Jim Nill's shoes?
I would say that the number one need is probably another defenseman on that back end. I feel like, a couple of years ago they made that trade with Calgary for Chris Tanev, and I feel like that's kind of the type of player that's needed in that spot back there, especially Liam Bichel hurt right now, and just all the chaos that's gone back there. I mean, they've had injuries across the board, so it's not just with the defense, but with the forwards. But yeah, I would agree with that. Top 4D and top and left winger definitely. Especially with Tyler Seguin out for the season, probably, even though they haven't put him on season-ending IR, which I would expect they do that because that would lessen. That would give them more cap room to make a move. So I don't necessarily know why they're waiting on that, but yeah, I would say that those are probably the two needs. I think the deals with Calgary make a lot of sense with that Rasmus Anderson they've been connected to and Nazem Kadri and Blake Coleman, who would both be among the older players on the Stars roster if they get here. The question is, do the Stars really have what they need to be able to make those moves, to give up to make those moves? Because look at the prospect pool. One of the I guess benefits of being a really good team is that you don't have those high draft picks and those prized prospects, which becomes a detriment when you're trying to make these kinds of trades. And ESPN put out an article ranking all 32 systems before the season started, and the Stars were ranked 30th out of 32. And so they really only have a few prospects that are, I don't want to say coveted because I don't even know if they're that strongly considered in league circles. But they really only have a few guys there, and then a couple guys on the roster would be like a Maverick Bourque or a Bichel, like I mentioned, or I would have said Justin Ritkovian before, but he signed a 2-year contract extension this morning. So they seem to want to keep him in the fold, and I don't think they'd be very willing to give him up easily. It's just, so you got to figure out if they have what they need to be able to make a move like that, because this isn't a couple years ago. Having said that, it's probably worth giving up what you need to go get those players. Kiefer Sherwood's another one that they've been connected with. I don't know, as a Canucks fan, and James, I'm interested to hear what.
And ask me anything. I know everything that's going on here, because every day I'm on the radio listening. I'm reading all the articles. I think what the Canucks want. This is my theory on the Sherwood thing, and I want to get your take on this. So I think the fact that it came, I'm sure you saw it. Well, I don't know if you guys get to watch it in the U.S., but Hockey Night in Canada, Elliot Friedman does his like roundtable thing on Saturday nights, and he mentioned that the Canucks did make an offer to Kiefer Sherwood, and everyone here is looking to maybe do another riot again like 2011, because nobody wants Kiefer Sherwood re-sign, and it's not because he's not a great player. He's amazing, but everyone here wants a rebuild. We don't want to be signing players in their 30s to long-term contracts. My theory on that was they're kind of telling teams like, hey, step up your offers. I think it was almost like a phantom thing. They put it out there because we heard this with Bo Horvat, and then he got traded. We heard this with so many other players that they were like circling back on offers. I think it's a play from Jim Rutherford. I think, it's pretty obvious Elliot Friedman gets a lot of his, info from Jim Rutherford. I think Rutherford kind of put that out there to let teams know, hey, we're let's get something going. I don't think they've got what they've been looking for, and I think that's a first round pick. I think that's what they're hoping to get for Sherwood. And if you saw Mason Marchment, speaking of former Stars, go to Columbus for what was it, a second round pick, I think Kiefer Sherwood could fetch a better return than that to some degree, because he's sort of a more versatile player. So I think Sherwood will get moved. I just think the Canucks are really trying to figure out what type of offer they can get that would be sort of satisfactory. But hey, if you want to give up Maverick Bourque, I'm cool with that, because the Canucks, they're not, they seem to be wanting to get these 20-year-old players instead of like first round picks. So we'll see.
That's one move that I'd like. I feel like that's a piece they would probably need to include. I don't know how willing they are to include him going forward with that. But Kiefer Sherwood, talk about that left wing, a top 6 forward spot with the way he's performed and stuff, and the physicality up in that top 6 that's kind of needed. He's scoring a lot of goals this year, but he's known mostly for being a physical forward. So are those other guys in Calgary and Kadri and Coleman. So, I think all 3 of those moves would bolster the depth scoring, which has been a problem over the past couple of games, because you're really relying on Wyatt Johnston on the power play or Mikko Rantanen and Jason Robertson. There's not a whole lot going on. Bourque and Ritzkovian have kind of swooped in and helped out a little bit, but you just feel like outside of those 3 players, you want to see a lot more from the guys on this roster. I mean, Rupe Hintz is making almost as much as, or on a similar deal as Wyatt Johnston, and not nearly the same production. I know he's a little bit a different type of player and not necessarily a scorer, more of an assist guy, but I feel like he's one of the guys that you feel that you need to see a little more out of, based on what he's making in the contract he has.
Well, the good news for Dallas that I will say, because I put this up here, not to mock the cap space and all that stuff here that you guys have, but no, I wanted to point out that you guys don't have a lot of picks coming up here, right? Like 2026, you don't have your first, 2028. But here's the good news: there's so many teams out there, like you mentioned, Calgary. Common sense with a lot of fans, and even we had Peter Klein on here a while back, and he agrees that it's probably time for a rebuild, not a retool. But a lot of teams don't want to do the rebuild; they want to do the retool for whatever reason, because they're worried about, I guess, fans showing up. I don't know, but there's a lot of teams that realistically should be doing a rebuild. We have John here in the chat. I think Winnipeg. I can't even believe they're worse than the Canucks this year, which is crazy. They're dead last right now. They should probably be looking at a rebuild as opposed to a retool, because again, they've been close and it just hasn't worked out. But tying this all back to Dallas, I think one of the things that you guys do have the benefit of is you have a couple young players like a Maverick Bourque, and that's what teams like Calgary are going to be looking for. I don't think they want the first round pick, because they don't want to do that full rebuild. They want guys that are already in the NHL. And you look at the Quinn Hughes trade that happened with the Canucks a little while back. Yeah, there was a pick involved, but it was also younger NHL ready players that could step into the lineup, and I think that's something that will benefit Dallas, because again, they don't have the draft capital to maybe pull off a big move like that. You mentioned Rupe Hintz. We've also talked about Jason Robertson. Like, are those, I know this, again, outsider looking in here, are those names that they would consider moving, or are we kind of past that point and they would rather just keep what they have, going forward?
I don't think they would consider moving them. I think I don't know what the developments are behind the scenes on Robertson's contract, because he still hasn't signed an extension.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's a little bit weird, right?
Rupe's tied down with that $8.5 million a year for the next 8 years or so, something like that. So he's on a longer one. I feel like it feels a lot more like Jason Robertson's going to get a contract here. It depends on the cap space. We're staring at that cap space right now. It's not very good. So they probably need some moves to work around it. I'm off the top of my head, I don't really know everything that's coming off the books after this year. But it feels like, the way he's playing, it feels like they kind of need him. He's been their primary source of scoring for the last 2 months. So you don't want to lose a guy like that from your lineup and just let him go for nothing. But I don't think they're even entertaining the thought of trading him.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I was kind of just gauging if there were any talks about that, because I know that was when we talked at the beginning of the season. I know that was sort of a topic of discussion, is what's going on with Jason Robertson. But you don't want to mess up the chemistry too much. The reason I bring that up too is because I think what we are going to see, going forward with certain teams is maybe a player for player swap, like maybe change of scenery. And I know Robertson obviously doesn't need it, but I wonder maybe if Robertson was something they're like, okay, we can't get him signed, maybe there would be an option of maybe like swapping a Robertson for something maybe a bit less, and then getting some of those pieces that we just talked about there if you can't trade some of the prospects. That's what I'm wondering, because we have seen them work, certain teams have worked sort of that gymnastics. Because here's another thing that, like, kind of tying it back to Vancouver, but I think there's always similarities there. Like, teams are still calling on Elias Pettersson. That's what we've been hearing in this market, and obviously he has not lived up to the 11.6, but I think there are teams that look at him and say we can make him become an 11.6 player, because I don't think it's happening in Vancouver. I think that ship sailed. I think he's played great this season, but not to the level of a guy that's like a game breaker. I think there's teams like a Montreal, for example, who maybe could look at him as a second line center, and that's where the Canucks would probably just want to get off the contract. I don't think you're going to get the maximum value for a guy like that. So I think it's a really interesting season, because again, you have, just looking at the standings right now, you have so many teams, like all these points are very close, and a lot of this also has to do with the condensed schedule. But I'm very curious to see how the trade market goes, because as we saw in the summer, not a lot of moves, because teams are wanting to keep their assets and they're not interested in building for the future. But you look at teams like John's bringing this up about Winnipeg. Like, yeah, in my opinion, if I was running a team, I would want to, these teams that are at the bottom, not Chicago, but like a Calgary, Vancouver, Winnipeg, and even St. Louis, they should be looking to do a rebuild. Like, it's not working. It hasn't worked for years, right? So
yeah, the closest they've gotten, other than Winnipeg being President's Trophy last year, the closest most of those teams have gotten is like right at the wild card. And so it's kind of stuck in that purgatory. But yeah, the thought on Robertson and doing all those moves is, it's something that Jim Nill probably, he's known to do cap gymnastics and trade gymnastics or whatever. It's just like the thing I keep coming back to on Robertson is nobody's really brought up what's going on with his contract since training camp. So there really hasn't been much talk going on there. So I really don't have a read on what that situation is. And then I guess you mentioned Mason Marchment earlier. There was rumors that the Stars were going to be trading for him back at some point because of, he fits exactly what they want, a physical top six left wing with some scoring ability. But I don't think that one's happening now either.
No, and Marchment, by the way, just was not a fit in Seattle for whatever reason. I don't know. That's what I heard, and that's why they ultimately moved off him as well here. Just get a couple more questions in the chat. Again, appreciate all the people tuning in here right now. John suggests someone like Pionk on Winnipeg. Ship some picks here. John, I'll throw this to you too in the chat if you're kind of aware. Like, you follow it more in the Winnipeg side of things. Are they looking to do like a full teardown? Because they have a lot of assets that would be intriguing to teams. But again, this comes back to the Calgary thing and the Vancouver thing. Like, they're not willing to commit to that. A lot of these teams, they don't want to do the full teardown because they know it's going to be a couple of years of suffering. But again, you look at the teams that are doing well. Like, I even bring up Colorado. People forget Colorado years ago. I think we've even talked about this on the show before. They made a decision years ago with Matt Duchene when they're like, okay, this core of what we have here is not working. We need to move a big piece. And that's when they traded Duchene, and then they ended up getting some picks. And I think the picks, I don't know if it was that pick, but I know some of the picks they got ended up getting McKinnon, right? So this is why, like, you look at all the teams. Dallas is actually one of the few teams that hasn't really had to tear it down because they've drafted so well. They're kind of an enigma in that regard, right? So.
Yeah, I guess. If you look at it in terms of a teardown, their teardown was years ago. So they're kind of on that upward trajectory and trying to figure out, like they have the past couple of years, what that next step is, and they've kind of tied that all into, okay, go in with this new coaching staff and a more aggressive on the ice, but like more relaxed kind of mentality, if you will, with the playing style. They want guys to just go out there and play hockey instead of overthinking or sticking to a system too much.
Natalie, by the way, thanks for all the questions. Natalie says Stars need to get back to the way they were playing before the Christmas break. So you think do you agree that they've kind of not been up to par lately? I know they lost again. I don't look at the Carolina losses that bad because it's Carolina, right? They're a good team,
right? But they lost 2 to Chicago.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I forgot about that. Yeah.
They lost one to Buffalo, which was Buffalo's winning streak. It was their 10th win in a row, so that's a tough one to see. Yeah, so it wasn't great. I mean, the schedule's been kind of weird since then too. I mean, they've had their most days off between games last week, and now it's ramping up. I think. I mean, they're on a really weird road trip right now. They've got they were in Carolina last night. They've got at Washington tonight, and then they head out to the West Coast for 4 games in a row. So it's a really weird scheduling thing. Probably, and everything's all jumbled together because of the Olympics next month. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that. It's just like I've said, they've had games pretty much back to back to back. With like a day in between all season, and now all of a sudden they're getting this long rest, and now all of a sudden they got these big road back to backs and all that stuff. So yeah, but they do need to get back to playing the way they were, because they were at time when they're rolling well, they're one of the hottest teams in the league.
Oh, dominant. Yeah. And I mean, it's shown in just the consistency here. And again, they're one of the few teams that if you look at kind of their home and away record, it's pretty interesting. There was some team I was looking at yesterday, and I couldn't believe their road record. Oh yeah, it was Winnipeg. Winnipeg has a worse road record than the Canucks. Canucks road record actually isn't too bad, but look at this. 4 wins at home this year. My goodness.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad.
I think that's worse than the league. Yeah, it is. Jesus. Sucks paying tickets. Emil Hemming was really good at the World Junior Hockey Championship. Unlikely he falls to round 2, but his brother Oscar is really, really good. Just signed to Boston College. Yeah, the draft. That's another thing. This is a really strong draft this year. So if your team, I think if you're a team that is even looking to do any sort of transition, this is the draft to do it. That's why, honestly, of all seasons for the Canucks to be terrible, this is the season to do it, because they've got, at least those top 3 in this draft this year look to be kind of game changers. So it should be interesting. Do you think the brothers on the same team is going to influence draft picks going forward? Well, I think the Hughes, if it's tying back to the Hughes thing, I don't even think there's a guarantee he goes to New Jersey. And you look at, speaking of teams that have really surprised, New Jersey got thumped last night, 9-0. Did you see that?
I saw the score. I couldn't believe it, but it was, that's bad. I mean, I don't know. Do you really want to go to a team that's losing 9-0? It's rough.
I think it's the same story every year with New Jersey, with the fact that whenever Jack Hughes is out, which this year obviously like a fluke thing that happened with the cut, but they just can't seem to they're not the same team without Jack Hughes. And yes, he's extremely valuable, but if you're this keeps happening. They can't, they don't look like a threat. And this is a team that has had sort of the same group for a while, and they've drafted well. But also, I saw this morning there's some fans talking about firing the GM because they had all these players. They have too much cap space, right? They don't have enough cap space, and they weren't able to move like Dougie Hamilton and some of these other contracts that they're tied to because he gave out so many no moves. And now, a time when they should be pouncing, they should have been the ones that made the huge trade, and they couldn't they couldn't make the cap thing work. So that's where Minnesota kind of swooped in. So, I don't know. The brothers thing's something to keep an eye on, but I think it really depends on the player. We know the Stalls are they played together at one point. But I don't think it's the be all end all for everyone. And I still don't think it's a guarantee Hughes goes to New Jersey, by the way. I think it's about him winning. And that's why he left Vancouver, because they haven't had a lot of winning. So there we go. In my book, everyone in Winnipeg is on the table, but Scheifele, Perfetti, Moresi, and Yeager. Yeah. So kind of like a hybrid rebuild.
Yeah.
But there's some good assets there. Even like a Luke Shen, he's a veteran. He's been in the league for a while. He's a good playoff guy that you would want. And one thing I should mention, and this is something I think is so good about Dallas, and it's been this way for a long time, is I know Nil's very big on character and culture, right? You don't hear of a lot of, bad things happening. I know there was a whole thing last year with DeBoer, but that's why they got rid of him, because he basically threw his goalie under the bus, and they're like, okay, enough's enough. Let's try something different. So
yeah, and on that, the documentary that ESPN did with that said that some of the players ended up at Ottinger's house to console him and stuff after that game.
I didn't watch this. Where was this?
Yeah. It was a feature that Emily Kaplan did for ESPN. And basically it said, I think it was Marchment and Matt Dumbo went out to Jake's house right after the game and were just supporting him or whatever. And
That's
then
awesome.
we're sitting there talking to Pete in the press conference a couple days later, and he's just yeah, I haven't talked to Jake yet. That's
a kiss of death.
A red flag. Yeah. It was, that was pretty damning testimony on him. So
yeah. Yeah, and it's very interesting. And again, Kiefer Sherwood, great locker. I know I feel like I'm selling you guys Kiefer Sherwood, but no, but like he's like that. That's been like one of the few positives over the last couple of years. Is like he was signed at a very low rate. I think he's making like 1.5. So that makes him very easy to trade as well. But just great locker room guy. Braden Coots, who the Canucks drafted this year, had a couple games with the Canucks at the beginning of the season. He said the first guy that talked to him and like sort of mentored him was Kiefer Sherwood. So that seems to fit the bill of what Dallas is looking for in the locker room too. So we'll see if there's a trade there. Just nudge Jim Nill and get Maverick Bork over here. I'd be happy with that. So he's a center too, which is always good. Rebuild needs to be done. Roster stinks and prospects pool is just stinky. Talking about Winnipeg. Yeah, I agree. Like I said, Calgary, Winnipeg, Vancouver, St. Louis, and I think I know there's all these guys in Nashville, like Stamkos is like, I love it here, and it's like, okay, I get it. Like Ryan O'Reilly, I understand he won a cup, right? But Stamkos, like you want to be finishing your years, on a losing. I don't know. Like I just don't like. To me, if you're not a team that's like, turning a corner here, there's some potential. Like Utah being 10th, like big deal. They're a young team. They're going to eventually get over the hump, but there's just no like. I don't know if you're a team that you got a roster that's full of like over 25 guys and you're not winning, it's probably time to switch things up. I think that's my philosophy. And I know it's easier said than done because, owners want to make money, but honestly, like talking to people here, like people would be fine watching a young team that's losing. At least there's hope right now. It's like you just have a core that just isn't getting it done here in Vancouver. EP40's contract's looking less worse now that the cap is up. Still not great though. But the problem is though, are you going to pay 11.6 for what he pretty much is a second line center? He's not a first line center. That's the issue. And Canucks are not going to retain because they're already paying Oliver Ekman-Larsson. How funny is this, by the way? Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who the Canucks, by the way, are still paying, has won a Stanley Cup, went to the Olympics, got selected over Marcus Pettersson, who is currently on the Canucks right now. So when it rains, it pours. So there you go.
That's it does not reflect well.
No, it doesn't. Cheveldayoff is there. They won't rebuild. He needs to go too. Cheveldayoff's been there since they came back, right? If I'm not mistaken. He's a former Detroit guy, if I'm not mistaken. You know this, right? You're a Wings guy.
I don't know.
I believe he was with the Wings before the Jets, and I don't know, the owner just loves him, so that's why he sort of stuck around there. Don't think they played like they are capable of, but the schedule doesn't help either. Stars play better when they are in a rhythm. That's what I'm so curious. Yeah. So there's a couple things I'm curious about come playoff time. And obviously we got some time. We're talking about this in January, but like, I do wonder, you got the Olympics coming up. There's going to be teams that are players that get banged up when they come back, and you look at some of those teams that have a lot of players going to the Olympics, that's going to be a red flag. Like, I think this year is so wide open, but the thing I will say, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, is like, do you think this is one of the years where Dallas could maybe really go for it? Like, other than like Colorado, Minnesota's going to be interesting, although I still wonder about their goaltending a bit. It's a little bit unproven in that regard. Carolina, same thing. I'm not a fan of their goaltending. And you got Tampa Bay at the top there, and you got your Detroit Red Wings there near the top too. But I think this is like such a wide open year that if you're Dallas, maybe you do want to go for it a little bit. I guess they kind of did that with the Rantanen trade last year.
I mean, yeah, I think the past couple of years, that's kind of been their mantras. They're going for it. They've hit the same roadblocks over and over again, but I mean that's where they are right now. Is everybody? I mean, you walk around Dallas and around that arena, and people are just like, "Oh, yeah, I'll see you at the parade" and stuff like that. So they're expect the public at least is expecting to compete for a cup, and the way that they play when they're on it shows a team that can go that far. But at the same time, they're still missing a couple pieces that they need to go after. And Jim Nill obviously always knows that. So I expect him to make some kind of move. What that is, we don't know. I don't see a Rantanen out of nowhere deal coming together again this year.
Plus, I don't think there's anyone in that situation right now, right? Not to my knowledge, I don't think there's anyone that's not signed, except for actually, it's a name, but not that I think you guys will get him, but Panarin in New York is an interesting one, right? Because the Rangers are terrible, and then is he gonna? Do you bring him back? Like, how are they gonna replace him, right? Like, you can't. So it's like, do you re-sign him for more money? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I more meant like from the standpoint of nobody's talking about this deal, and all of a sudden there's a big deal going down.
Yeah, that's true.
With Rantanen, I don't see anything coming out of thin air like that did. And player of that caliber, you're not going to be able to afford another one anyway. Jim Nill's the kind of guy, kind of GM who is going to make some kind of move, but we don't really know what's working in his brain right now, where he's at with all that, because It's if we did, it'd be public knowledge. So
Yeah. No, I agree. Not a mind reader here. What do
yeah.
you make though of like kind of just looking at the Western Conference here? And again, keep the questions coming, everyone. We really appreciate them. Like for example, like this year, like I think of all years, like the big issue with Dallas in the playoffs has been Edmonton, right? But I think of all years, they're not looking like the old Edmonton. And I know they've obviously improved since then. They've gone on a pretty incredible run after really tanking earlier in the season, but. You trade Skinner for Tristan Jarry. It's like, is there much of a difference there? In fact, I think they might even be worse because I'm just kind of spitballing off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure Skinner's numbers have been better than Jarry if you took the last like 4 or 5 seasons. So I don't know if they've even really fixed that. So
Yeah, I was scratching my head at that one because I figured they'd want to upgrade at goalie, and at best, that's just a swap of similar.
it's a lateral move, in my
Yeah,
opinion. If anything, it could be worse. And of course, he gets hurt, and now Connor Ingram's in net. So it's like, I don't know there. I don't think they really addressed that. I still think the guy they should have gone after, because he's obviously playing well in Detroit, is John Gibson. I don't know why they didn't make that move, or at least.
Well, it took him a while to adjust to Detroit. He's really come on the last 10 starts or so is when that's kind of coincided with the Red Wings run. But in the West, Colorado, I would say, I mean, it's hard to ignore that 4 regulation losses at this time of year. I mean, and that's with, Scott Wedgwood playing most of the minutes in goal at the beginning of the year. And he's supposed to be your backup goalie, which, I mean, I know a lot of Stars fans love to see him doing well, just not with Colorado.
That's true. Well, I don't think anyone could have predicted. I mean, let's be honest. Like, there's a couple goalies like that where it's like, where did this goalie come from? You know what I mean? Like,
I think Wallstedt in Minnesota is one of those guys. You're just like, okay, I guess you didn't know what he had before, and now he's one of the best in the league.
But will it last? That's the big question. Like we always see goalies are so streaky sometimes. Like some of them, like they look like Jarry was like that actually. Like he, there was a point when he was considered one of the best in the league, and now he's, I don't know. Ever since he signed that contract, it's been like the opposite, right? So
I think there was a similar thing with Alex Nedeljkovic after he got traded from Carolina. He was finished 3rd in the Calder as a rookie, and then just never kind of recovered for that. But I think the Stars' biggest hurdle is obviously Colorado right now. And depth is definitely something that they need to work on going forward.
Yeah, I could see Dallas making a couple moves here, just depending on what other teams want or what's available. Edmonton doesn't scare me, especially if the Stars are on. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Edmonton
this version of Edmonton is not scary.
No, and listen, there have been games like I remember they played Pittsburgh a few weeks ago, and they kind of like they just sort of took over that one. But you haven't seen that as consistently this year, and I think part of that, speaking of depth, is they're missing a lot of depth, right? Mangiapane hasn't worked out for Edmonton. They lost Kane, they lost Arvidsson, they lost Perry. Like there was a lot of sort of little pieces that I think were good complementary pieces, and then you look at what they sort of replaced it with. It hasn't really worked out. So I'm with you. And again, I've always say this on here. I'm obviously extremely biased towards the Oilers, but they just have not. This year feels different. Let's put it that way compared to what they've been in the past. As far as them being a threat. We mentioned this earlier. Sagan, we don't know yet, or Tyler doesn't know yet, but maybe we'll get some clarity on the Sagan being shut down.
Yeah, they've said it's an ACL injury, and they have him on long-term IR right now. They have neglected to put him on season-ending IR, but again, with an ACL injury, that's usually like a year-long recovery thing. Like by the time I expect to see him back on the ice, I mean, he's a warrior, and he grinds through all those rehabs and comes back. The hip injury he had was something that kind of ends some people's careers. But with this injury, I mean, he could possibly not be back until his contract is almost up, given the time frame, because he's a free agent after next season, technically. Now that could bode well for Dallas and get him to sign here again for less money than what he would have gotten in an open market otherwise, or they could say he's done and let him go. We don't know what that's going to. We'll just let that play out. But he's probably not going to be much of a factor this year, if anything at all.
Well, he's kind of winding down his career, anyways. Have I told you my Tyler Seguin story? I don't know if I've mentioned
I
this
don't
on
know.
air. It's not really like it's not like a terrible story or anything.
Yeah.
But I'm living in Toronto at the time, and of course Seguin is from the area, and I saw him at a bar, and he had a lot to drink. Let's just put it that way. And he wasn't doing anything like dumb or anything. But you remember the whole thing about him in Boston? This was ages ago, but this was when he was still with the Bruins. And the whole thing with him with the Bruins was that he partied too much, and that's why they made that trade for Louis Eriksson, which, by the way, worked out great for you guys because Louis Eriksson wasn't there that long and ended up going to Vancouver. Yeah, it was like, I think it was like a couple weeks after I saw him when he was out partying. And like, listen, it was the summer, it was the off season. It doesn't really matter, but it was just funny because I saw him there and I remember like this whole thing about him being, and he was nice. Like I think I was with a couple friends and someone's like, "Are you Tyler Seguin?" And he kind of like gave a smirk, and it was definitely him. And he was with some ladies and whatever. But like a couple weeks later, he gets traded. And again, the whole thing at the time was that, we just, it wasn't a fit because of because the rumor was when he was in the finals, and I think it was 2011, they actually had to have like a chaperone make sure he wasn't going out.
Yeah,
Did you know about this?
I've heard that. You might have told me that honestly before, but it's and there was.
But hey, it worked out in Dallas. I mean, he's been great for you guys, right?
Oh yeah. They love him around here. He's a really good locker room guy, and I think they really miss him on the ice. I mean, he had that hip surgery, and a bunch of us Stars people have heard this before, but Adam Ernie, who signed with the Stars, also had the same surgery the same day with the same surgeon. So that's a little bit of a coincidental story there. But the way he was playing this season after that surgery, it was the best that he's been playing in a while, and he looked the healthiest he's looked in a while. So that was unfortunate injury to happen to him, and the fact that they honored his, I think it was 1,000th career game a couple days after the injury happened. Was when the ceremony was planned for. So it was a little unfortunate timing, and that's going to be a huge void that they have to fill in that top six.
Yeah. No, it's unfortunate. And by the way, I thought he was older. He's only 33. I mean, that's not like young, but he's still got a number of seasons left. We see players playing into their 40s. John says Colorado losing Landeskog is a huge loss. Taves too. They're going to struggle by their standards. I mean, but you know what? What's the stat? I think the President's Trophy winning teams, they never seem to go for. I don't think they've won the cup in a long time, right?
It's not a good sign for the playoffs. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. So that's what I mean. I think Dallas, Minnesota, I think it's going to be an interesting year. Vegas has been not, like, they've been okay. Like you thought with Marner, maybe they'd be like going to another level, but I think Vegas is kind of the same, right? Am I wrong about that? Like the games that I've watched, there's certain games they look good, and then there's certain games where it's like, what's going on? There's no like chemistry. It's just weird.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of them, so but I thought they would be much better than they are once they added Marner. That was. I had Colorado and Vegas as my top two competition for Dallas. I don't know, definitely said that wrong, but
No, I know what you mean.
The top two teams Dallas needed to compete
here to
with.
pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
It's all good. What does Travis think of the new black unis? They are sick, in my opinion. The new Dallas Star unis.
Yeah, everybody loves those. I've asked a couple players about who some of their classic, like what some of their favorite jerseys are or whatever, but everybody loves I mean, there was lines around the corner for when they came out for the pro shop or whatever. So everybody wants them. I see them out there all the time. I mean, it's nice it's basically the new color scheme, but with like the old jersey design. They've got the black on there with the new victory green trim. So
it's this one here. I think I had it in the thumbnail, right? It's that one.
Yeah,
that's the one.
Yes,
that looks good.
Yeah,
I've always liked that logo better. I don't know, like
you're not alone on that. Everybody wants them to go back to that. What they did there.
I think the new one's okay. Like I actually don't mind this, the one with the state of Texas in the background. But this, maybe it's because I grew up watching like Medano and those guys wearing this old one. But I like the green trim. I also don't mind that they don't have the shoulder one too on there. I think that looks good with just the black and the star. But no, very sharp jersey. Honestly, very very like high up there for sure. So
there's even some people who want that to be their permanent jersey.
It should. Maybe we should start a petition.
It's great. Yeah. I don't know how that stuff kind of works, but
you know, it's funny. It's same thing here in Vancouver. Awesome. Everyone wants the skate back, the black and orange, right? They like that. That one too, which is kind of iconic. That's like Pavel Bure. So
I was gonna say, I think those were the ones they were wearing before I was born.
Yeah, no, they were. Yeah, they were. They had the like the mustard ones, and then they went to the. I always just think of the black, the one. I don't have the jersey here today, but the like the
Yeah,
old
I
beret one with the
know
black
which
and
one
them.
you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that one was pretty good. I think one of the three Central teams will be in the finals. Yeah, I
That's
mean,
a
we'll see.
good bet.
Yeah, I would definitely because looking at the Central right now, I mean, yeah, I think because that's the thing that's the thing I've noticed. Like Minnesota, Dallas, Colorado have really separated themselves because you look at the points drop off. There's about 10 points, which is Vegas and Edmonton basically the same amount of points, but Edmonton's actually played more games, so Vegas is technically ahead.
And then in the division, it's like 15 points or something. So like even with this losing streak, you got a lot of space to operate with.
Well, that's what worries me because Canucks are 37 points, but technically they're only 8 points out of a playoff spot, which there's still some weird people here who think that like somehow they're going to make the playoffs, but it's not happening.
Yeah, eternal optimists.
Yeah. No, I'm not about that. Rebuild's the way to go. Before we wrap things up here, so we sort of talked about Dallas's needs. Are there players that you look at, like we talked about Kiefer Sherwood, talked about Anderson, like are there any players you're kind of looking around the league and going like that would be a good fit in Dallas? Or are you someone that kind of looks at, who's maybe available, right? I'm actually surprised we haven't, I guess because it's kind of early, but we haven't really seen any trade boards yet, so I don't even know who's really available.
Right, yeah, I don't know who's available, so I haven't really looked at anything.
Taking a stab at
I haven't looked at anything other than what they've been tied to through rumors and stuff. I know a couple other guys. Nick Robertson was mentioned out there. Jason Robertson's brother.
That would be cool.
That would be interesting,
and that would kind of fit the depth thing too. It's just a question of how much. And I think again, like my Leaf friends and we kind of dispute this a little bit because Toronto right now sitting in 11th, so they're not I mean, they have 47 points. Penguins have 49, so not really out of a playoff. But I said this too. It's like, are the Leafs a contender in the East? Not really. Especially not with Marner this season. Like, I don't think they're that scary team that they used to be in years past. So, I don't know. I wonder if they look at moving some big pieces. We'll see. So
right. And then the last name that I saw mentioned a while ago was Alex Tuck from Buffalo.
If he doesn't resign, good point.
Yeah, but they're a point out of a playoff spot right now. So to your point about your worry with the Canucks, that's probably the same worry that some Buffalo fans have because they don't know really how good they are, even though they've been on that 10-game winning streak. I mean, I think it was snapped by now, but I mean,
they won again last night, so I think it's 10 of 11 they've won. I think, which is crazy.
Yeah, it was their win here in Dallas on New Year's was their 10th in a row. So I know that. So that was.
But that's the big question too. Does Dallas even want to go down the rental route? Because I think with Tuck, you could get him, but you're not going to sign him long term because he wants like $10 million a season. I don't think the cap wouldn't work for that.
Right.
And they've done it before. They did it with Tanev, right? Like they got him as a rental and he did help, right? But he's just,
that would be an all-in type of move. And you'd have to wonder what does Buffalo view themselves as right now? Because they fired the front office people and then they suddenly went on a roll and now they're, right on the outside of the playoff picture. Are they going for a playoff spot or are they going to accept, hey, we're usually one of the worst teams in the league. That's probably going to happen again.
Well, I wonder then, do they look at like a lateral move maybe for Tuck? Because here's the thing: if Tuck doesn't sign, because I'm pretty sure Tuck's a UFA.
I think it's his expiring contract. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. If you can't sign him, it's like the whole thing last year with Brock Besser, although he did end up signing with Vancouver. But you want to get some. Well, they lost a Pius Suter for nothing, right? So I wonder, and you're looking, so he's a UFA and he's only making 4.7 this year. So. He's making the same amount as Jason Zucker, which is interesting. So there we go. What about Blake Coleman as a rental? Yeah, that would fit the bill.
That was one of the Flames guys. Kadri and Coleman are the two forwards that have been tied to the Stars in that one. Like I said earlier, they'd be two of the oldest people on the Stars roster, but they're producing. I know Kadri doesn't have a lot of goals, but he's got a lot of points and a lot of scoring, or not scoring, a lot of physicality. Coleman got some more goals. I mean, Coleman, I think, would be 4th or 5th in goals on the Stars right now, and so I mean that would address the depth scoring issue. He's got more goals than Roope Hintz does this year. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, something I'll keep an eye on. I kind of forgot about Hintz not producing as much, so maybe. I mean, I don't think they'll trade him, but again, like with the cap going up,
he's got a lot of points. It's just that he's not putting the puck in the net.
Yeah.
So
We'll see. We'll see who's available. Travis, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. Just let people know what you got coming up, because you don't just cover hockey, you cover sort of everything in the Dallas area. And then you got the Texas Stars or the Texas Hockey Podcast as well too. You guys do a great job on there. By the way, you need a Canucks guy to come back on. I'm happy to do that. But just let our audience know anything you got coming up before we get out of here.
Yeah, like James said, I'm the host of the Texas Hockey Podcast right here on Fanatics View. James has been on the show once. Probably, just once. We'll get him back on. We've had a little bit of a break, but we'll get some new episodes, new content out here soon for that. And then I'm gonna have another new platform for some of my college football writing and stuff coming up soon, but I can't quite announce that yet. So the other place you can find my writing for all kinds of sports is on my Substack. It's ttyler.substack.com. Also, you can find that through actually, you know what? I don't know if I'm allowed to say that right now.
No worries.
Reasons,
that's what we call a teaser in this business. It's a teaser.
Yeah.
Just follow you, but you can follow you on Twitter though.
But basically, Substack and Fanatics View. I have the Texas Hockey Podcast here, and also some of my individual interviews on the Hockey Channel and the College Football Channel. So yeah, that's where you can find me, and then obviously Twitter handles listed below. So go ahead and follow me on the socials if you want the sports content, not just hockey, like